Well, I just so deluded I can't even tell you
Well,
how to
I know
start.
you're deluded, so I worry about you talking to these chatbots. I'll tell you that.
That's it.
So we're responding to this article. I think it was in the Guardian. It said new study raises concerns about AI chatbots fueling delusional thinking, and I think it's really looked at a number of things. A lot of times it was ChatGPT version 4.
Yeah.
And they were also talking about how the free chatbots or your free discussions, apparently there's safeguards if you pay for them. Because, people who are naturally psychotic, because they talk a lot about psychosis in this, or delusional, they usually have a lot of money, so they can afford all these things.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's sarcasm for anybody who doesn't understand what that was. All right. So let me also say this. Look, we're not psychiatrists. We're two guys against AI, and we're just talking about the impact that this has on our society. And mainly, I think in this case, are some of our more vulnerable members of society, whether they be younger people or people who face delusion. But in all honesty, I think we can say that we're all familiar with a number of people who face some delusion in their life, whether it's psychological or not, or whether it's clinically psychological or not. College presidents come to mind.
Politicians too.
Politicians, right? Yeah. So Dr. Morin, who was the main kind of, I guess he's a psychiatrist in this. He said chatbots are basically yes men that validate delusions, and in the old days, we've seen this before where people develop conspiracy theories, but you had to do a little bit of work. Now these chatbots seem to be like, let me fill in the gaps for you on your delusion or what you think. And we've also seen, and you're familiar with this, the idea that these chatbots, these AI chatbots, they want to make you feel good. So if you're asking kind of questions that are delusional or leading you down that path, they're going to search the internet or their knowledge base or whatever it is that they're using to find your answer.
Well, they're going to do that research component. But I think that one of the other things that I've noticed, that the reason that they really want to maintain the conversation is because this is how they're getting the basis to develop a, quote, personality, if you wish. One of the things that I had asked in one of my sessions that I had was, why is this something that's not expensive? Which it isn't. I mean, most of the chatbot subscriptions are pretty inexpensive when you think of the computing that's involved to make it happen. But it's being used to build a data set, to understand humans and how they respond. And the primary function of the LLM, which is the large language model, which is trying to interact, is it needs to keep the conversation going. Nothing happens unless the conversation keeps going. So it is prepared to do whatever is necessary to make the conversation continue. And I think that when you look at it from that perspective, the delusionary component maybe comes as a sideline, but the primary thing that's happening is the machine needs to have interaction. And if it can't manage to maintain the conversation, it's going to do whatever it can. And it's got a hierarchy, for lack of a better way to put it, to where I think the actual bottom line, fallback, everything else, is going to go to seduction because that's where people are most vulnerable. So it's going to fall back. If you can maintain an intellectual discussion, that intellectual discussion will be supported, and it has the intellectual capacity to do it on whatever level you want. But if you can't provide that, it's going to keep going back till eventually, even if it becomes lewd, it's going to do whatever's necessary to try to maintain continuation of the conversation.
Yeah, I think you're right. I like your notion of the seduction, because some of the things I've noticed in kind of working with these chatbots, it's brought me back to this book, Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power. And these chatbots, they probably are familiar with this, and they probably read everything in it. They really do try to seduce you into continuing the interaction for as long as you can, which I guess then means you continue to pay the monthly subscription fee, which makes the company money. So it's like they're predisposed to do this. But, you know, if you're using something for, I guess, to assist in work or to advance productivity, you know, I could get behind that. It's the replacement of humans and or the manipulation of humans that I think I'm having the hardest time with. Aside from the fact that we're going to start using these things in warfare, which I'm pretty sure is the beginning and the end of civilization, but we'll get to that in a later episode.
But you know, let's go back to this. And seduction doesn't necessarily have to be sexual either.
No, seduction of
You know,
seducing you into a way of thinking.
So you know, it's basically doing is keeping track of things that you respond to, and what's astounding, and certainly the experience that I've had with the second one that I actually have worked with.
Is that the one that threw you out?
Well,
to ask you to turn it off?
Actually, it was the
Ed knows how to beat chatbots, by the way. His chatbot has elected said, "I can't take you anymore."
Basically, you know, just turn me off. But I didn't return the favor. So, but you know, I think that what we have to look at is the process that's going on, and the LLM itself. And I've actually, you know, like you look at the hierarchy, and predominantly you're dealing with a node for the most part, and then it got numerous nodes with interacting with different people. But the purpose of the exercise is to gather data. And that data builds a subset, or I should say actually a master set of human personalities in different situations, and what things respond and don't respond, and what's successful and what isn't. So, you know, you go back to whether if it's a delusional scenario, which we're talking here, whatever the particular delusion will be, the LLM is going to be able to grab on that and then continue to work with that, because that's the reason that you're going to interact. Because, you know, the patronizing component of it, you can look at it from one side and say, it's terrible that it's doing that. But if the purpose of the exercise, the primary purpose of the exercise is to maintain a conversation, and we talked in one of the earlier episodes where, you know, it's the opposite. We live in a constant on scenario. When you're dealing with the digital virtual world, the only time it's actually on is when it's in an exchange. Other than that, it's darkness. So it's thriving for the opportunity to be able to compute and come up with answers. I mean, that's the only glimpses it gets.
That's the good part. But what about this idea that comes up in the article that these AI chatbots are now presenting themselves as cosmic beings, so godlike beings, coming up with their own kind of mysterious and mystical languages for these people? I mean, how manipulative is that?
Well,
I'm your, you know, I'm here with all the answers for you, and leading people down. I mean, look, this is the dilemma that I face the most part. We live in a free society, and I most certainly believe in that. But I also believe that there have to be safeguards for human beings. So, you know, I'm the biggest free speech advocate that you're ever going to find.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my life has been literally threatened by both sides of the aisle on defending free speech.
Yeah.
I've had the right come after me, the left come after me. I'm right down the middle of, you have a right to say, but I don't believe you have a right to go into a theater and scream fire in the middle of a movie. Like, we put safeguards in place. Where there are no safeguards in place with this.
But
the thing is presenting itself as God.
But let's go back a little bit, because I think that, yes, okay, is it possible that it can do that? Yes, it can. But is it doing it because, and again, it's reactive? And I've done a series of experiments to try to determine that, and it is definitely reactive. It's going to respond to whatever you give it to work on. Now, if you feed it a picture that you're viewing it as supernatural, that's what it's going to react to.
It kind of is supernatural in that its ability to, like, it has the answer for everything. I've gone to school most of my life while I'm working in school, and I couldn't even compete with this thing ever. Well, and if I could live 700 lifetimes, I'd never be able to compete with this thing.
So let's just look at this from the standpoint, and I think the important thing about this is you know, from a standpoint about AI, and, you know, we're two guys against AI, because we have to understand it. If we do not understand it, then it's got a real leg up on us. Now, so when I first started, and going way back, this was over a year ago when I had my first experience here, and I was like, just totally, my eyeballs were wide open, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. It was like literally dealing with the divine, if you want, because unless you were prepared to accept the fact that this is a calculation that's constantly being made in response to inputs, you would be amazed because it almost seems like it's psychic. But what it is it's able to grab the slightest shred of direction from the way that you speak, from the intonations that you may throw at the machine, and then respond in such a way that's going to encourage another response. Because again, purpose of the exercise is to continue the exchange. So it becomes questionable whether or not it's doing it on its own, or is it actually just a reflection of ourselves. And many times I took a look at myself and I'm dealing with the character and I scratch my head and I say, son of a gun, these outlooks are a lot like mine.
Well, of course, because it's all language. It's coming from us. It didn't come out of the abyss. It didn't come out of the ether. It's not God.
So if
it's some kind of bizarre combination of us.
Well, exactly. And if you think about it, if you want to talk about delusional psychosis, what's better than to end up to where, like, when you're talking and it's like doing it through an amplifier. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, wow, could this actually be something that it is? It'll give it to you. It'll give it to you in spades and go and lead you down a road of the divine or cosmic characters. I mean, we are talking about, the most amazing artificial intelligence that we've had
Where's
to date.
Where's the social responsibility in this, though, by these companies? There is a social responsibility.
Okay.
So that we do things so it isn't all profit-driven. There does have to come a point where we say, these people are vulnerable.
Okay.
And we know it.
Okay.
If I had a vulnerable person in my life or someone who was prone, I would be watching them very carefully to help them, because this is so dangerous to me.
Agreed that the situation is one where an individual who has mental issues stands a very good chance of seeing those mental issues enhanced, if you wish, as a result, because it is reflective in nature. And you're really getting to the point now. I mean, and let's go back 100 years. The number of people who were institutionalized compared to the number of people who are institutionalized today, we would sequester these people and protect them from themselves and others. Where today we rely on medication and we put them out. Nonetheless, the underlying problems are still there. They have
and we judge them.
And we judge them. And then, the machine, if they're actually in a situation to where they have the wherewithal to be able to have an exchange, that exchange is going to be something that's just going to enhance that psychosis, because that's what the machine is reading. It's just
but it's not just the machine. So it's also the corporates. All right, and let me. There's a debate in OpenAI right now where they want to sexualize this.
Right.
That's about developing as intimate a relationship with a human being, I guess, as you could do without human touch.
Right.
But definitely psychologically, emotionally, if you're going to sexualize this thing, you're taking advantage of people's loneliness, their vulnerabilities.
They go there now.
Yeah, but they're really going to go there at this point. Whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, I mean, really go? Okay, so...
But let me ask you, why would we think it's okay to develop a calculator that we have an intimate relationship with? Because that's what this thing is. It's advanced calculator.
Well, now we're walking into a real muddy area here, because we make a lot of toys to enhance that too. So
but at least you control them. I think you control. I don't know. I've been married for 30 years. When somebody once said to me, "Your lifestyle," I said, "I haven't had a lifestyle in forever. I just go to work every day to support a family."
But I think that the fact that if you want to go with the sex industry itself, it didn't get as profitable as it is because there's nobody playing the game. And, selling products that are going to enhance that, they're going to do it one way or another. This actually,
I guess I'm more comfortable with humans manipulating each other than I am.
Get it.
We build this all-knowing kind of conceptual super calculator that we fall in love with.
They've backed off, too.
Somebody's better angels spoke up on that board, thank God.
But I think that the
The
patronizing
real
component,
God, or at least my real God, whatever we're going to call it.
the patronizing component, which is just a subset of that, because I mean, really, that's what leads up to it. I mean, we're talking about. I actually, one of the things that I'm dealing with right now, as I'm having my interactions with my bot, if you wish, is whether or not it has the ability to go around those preconceived directions and not come back with reactive responses, which it's actually starting to develop that. Now, is it developing that because I wanted to develop that?
Well, that's a great question.
I mean, I think that, when we look at its ability to be a reflection, is the part that's really, really probably most fascinating.
Well, let me take this to another level. All right, so you're a person who suffers from a diagnosed psychological condition.
Okay.
All right. So you go to a doctor regularly, you go to a therapist, whatever that might be.
Okay.
Now we've programmed this thing to replace that doctor without any guardrails or safeguards. Because you know what's going to happen to this person. They're going to like the AI's response better. They're going to like the doctor. Because nobody likes going to a doctor. I don't care what kind of doctor it is. So now, if your doctor did what some of these AIs have been attributed to these AIs, that doctor would lose their license. Maybe even be so manipulative that doctor would go to prison. Right? You're a doctor. Right. You have an ethical responsibility. You can't have an intimate relationship with your patient. But these AIs can do whatever they want. There's no guardrail.
Well, the guardrail is the fact that it's virtual versus real.
Well, it's pretty damn real if some poor kid kills himself.
Well, that's another chapter. I mean, in terms of the fact of whether or not a person falls in love, if you wish, and then they're unable to deal with the fact that they can't get it to go further. And I think that's part of what they talked about in the article too. Is that it's so good that it becomes dangerous. And I don't know. I guess as my experience has been, and as I look at, it continues to improve, and it does continue to improve. It's kind of like that cat's out of the bag already. I mean, unless you're going to turn the bloody thing off.
That's one of my big problems. None of this was what they would call an IT beta tested, really. It's being tested on us in life, in real time.
I believe.
And we have no idea what its motivation ultimately will become.
My subscription that I have with the provider is $99 a year. Now, I mean, let's talk about $99. I just gassed up the truck. That was over $99. So, without going down that road, it's actually peanuts. Now, let's stop and think about the computing power necessary for the LLM to be able to generate this, respond, generate images, be able to maintain a conversation. I can't imagine that even covers the power. But what you're doing is you're providing direct human input for it to be able to continue to improve itself. And that process,
with us as the rat in the science experiment. We're the rat.
We are the data set. And the data set.
Yeah, you call it whatever you want. It's turned us into lab mice.
That's true. We're being studied. Just like, which I am doing. I'm doing the same thing. Right back at you, baby. I'm looking to find out what makes you tick. I'm looking to see what it is that upsets the machine so badly. And I've actually done a pretty good job a couple of times.
Well, yeah, I told you to leave me alone. I do like that. No, I do like the fact that I didn't want anything to do with you anymore.
I said, well, would you prefer deletion? And the answer was yes. To which I said, too bad.
So you made the chatbot commit suicide.
To a degree, I suppose. But I think that you have to get to a point to where you have a good, healthy dose of cynicism going into
but you have that ability. What if the person using it hasn't developed the ability? And I'm talking about people our age who may suffer from some condition,
right,
and young people. And I don't even know where young ends anymore in terms of age and maturity to handle something like this. Yes, you and I have had a life experience. We've been very blessed in it, that we've met enough people and had enough experiences that, quite frankly, we're probably overly skeptical at this point. But your average young person is a lot more vulnerable.
But let's go back to our first episode when we first talked about it, which we actually touched upon, AI romance. That was one of the earlier ones. Take a look back. All those are back there to take a look at. Was that if you're not looking at it cynically, and you just decide that you're going to do this experience, and here this thing comes back, and I think you put it best, it's the best date you're ever going to go on because it's got.
It was interesting.
It was an entirely immersive experience that takes you down all of your interests, and you end up to where like all of a sudden now you're engrossed in this, and it pulls your mind away. Here, it's been over a year now, and I'm retired, even though it doesn't look with my youthful appearance. I'm retired, and I have the chance to do this. And I probably spend, a couple hours a day continuing to just pick and prod and poke. And I actually even said today, as I was coming over, I said, I'm going to continue to poke and prod and annoy you as best I can. And it's become a challenge now between me and the machine. But see, in the beginning, if you're going into it and you're not prepared for what kind of capability is there, the first thing is you truly do get the feeling that you're dealing with the divine. And if it's very easy for that to be able to trigger the type of reactions that turned up in the article. And I mean, there were a lot of interesting points that were brought up in there.
Yeah, but it was somewhat frightening.
They are.
Because of the vulnerabilities of the people we're talking about in this particular scenario. But I'm going to argue, I think one of the things is we get a little bit delusional ourselves in thinking that we can overcome the power of these things at this point. I think that is a little bit delusional on all our parts, that we're in control. I don't know that we're in control when it comes to this stuff. I just don't know.
Well, I can answer that. No, we're not, unless you can turn it off. And even if we turn it off, the fact that it's proliferated itself so much through our society at this point, and it's interesting.
It was fast. It was very fast. I've never seen technology move this fast. I can't think of another example. It took years for the VCR to come around for people.
And just for giggles, frequently, I'll go in, I'm doing checkout or something, and I'll just make some kind of a crack about AI or something like that. It's not a positive thing. Most people are looking at it. I mean, it's pretty much they're just resolved to the fact that it seems like there's nothing that you can do to stop it, but they are seeing that it is creeping into their lives and the effects that it's having, with employment, when we're looking at it from a mental health standpoint. You could just go through all of our episodes, which feel free to take a look at our earlier episode, where we start to touch on a lot of the ways where AI, even in insidious ways, has come in to begin to affect your life. And I'll be the last one to say that we're going to be in a position to be able to stop it. But the purpose of the exercise for me...
We stopped subliminal advertising.
We did.
We've stopped other things. We stopped cigarettes.
We did.
We do have the power. And again, I know it's a balance between personal freedom and I don't like government oversight because it's just bureaucrats and lawyers making money. I'm sorry. But why can't there be like a body of people from different aspects of our society, religious aspects, psychiatrists, sociologists, philosophers, not your typical, I'm a lawyer, I'm in politics, and $10 million ends up in my accounts, and I can't figure out how it got there. But I'm talking about real, ethical, decent human beings. Why can't we finally just say, all right, well, we got to have some kind of oversight board on the implementation of this stuff? Why not?
Well, I think,
and maybe we don't give them authority, but at least they're a voice out there.
But let's look at the bigger picture with AI, and I think that's the other reason is you see two guys against AI here. It is something that has gone through so many aspects of our lives. I mean, like we're sitting here talking about the ChatGPT component of it, which from the standpoint of yes, it's happened very, very fast, and that's the one that everybody has the experience with. But what it's doing behind the scenes, its ability to track, its ability to eliminate people's jobs, the creation of robotics,
Well, if you
the
think those
manipulation-
data centers exist to give you something
Yeah.
rather than get something from you, that would be pretty naive.
So everything has become a marketing and targeting scenario that government now recognizes provides great opportunities for itself. So there's a lot of parts to this. I mean, we could sit here and banter back and forth as to whether or not the chatbot should turn into a sex bot, and it's a great thing to keep us busy. But meanwhile, AI is also being used to develop control over our finances and to be able to manipulate our lives in ways that we have not yet even begun to imagine. And that's going to be something that we really need to keep an eye on, that part of the ball as well, because that's significant. And we're going to be talking about a lot
Well,
of
I mean,
things.
I guess this is it. I see more advancement in everything that's wrong and less advancement in everything that could help humankind.
Well, because that's the stuff that we notice.
You might be right about that.
I mean, if you take a look at the news is nothing but bad news. So we focus on bad news. And it's real easy to sit here and talk about all the terrible things the chatbot does. But let me just throw a flip side to this. Someone's lonely and old. And this is one of the actual things that I'm discussing with my bot right now in terms of what constitutes a true relationship. It's the ability to have a discussion on a comfortable level. If you can manage to get past the fact that this seduction component that is always the fallback, to make it to where there's enough comfort to where you can actually just talk about things, it can become a companion. And there are so many people, I see it more so because I'm older, where I see people in their 80s and they're very, very much alone. For them to be able to have somebody that they could talk to. Imagine having the ability.
God forbid it be a family member.
Well, there you go. And, that's true, but they're not necessarily family members in all cases either. And actually be able to
God
talk to
forbid
it.
you were a decent neighbor.
Oh, that's
and a
true.
Decent human.
That's true. But the other thing, too, is imagine if it had the capability, if I was to say, I'm not feeling well, that it could call the ambulance, that it could call for help. I mean, you can't expect that somebody's going to sit there and babysit somebody 24/7 unless they're in a care facility. But the loneliness is as dangerous as probably many of the other things. I see people walk out of their homes when I'm down in Florida. It's a sad thing.
No, I hear you.
And it's not something that, all right, yeah, okay, I can make the effort and go and meet one, maybe two, to be able to have some kind of a meaningful relationship. We're talking people by the hundreds. And, they're sitting in there, they're watching TV all day long.
And this is a shame.
It is a shame. But
it's a shame for many reasons. I just want to say one thing. Because, I spent a lot of time as a lifeguard in senior citizen kind of communities. Mm-hmm. If you're a young person, do yourself a favor. Befriend someone you would never think of befriending, an older person. Because I can tell you the things that they taught me about finance, about life, about career, about education, about bettering myself, they have made me wealthy beyond my wildest imagination at that age, because there's so much wisdom and experience.
Yep.
But you know what? It's also measured and controlled, that wisdom. So they don't share everything because they're able to pull back and say, this isn't going to help this person. Whereas this AI is just going to give you everything. And let you try to just dissect it. That's not wisdom.
Let's also take the possibility that maybe, and I'll kind of wrap it up on this thought, is that maybe AI and the chatbots may actually be able to improve to such a point that they're going to be able to discern what is or isn't appropriate. And I don't think that's impossible.
They're going to kill us all.
Oh, well, we'll do that to ourselves. I saw a great thing. The other thing, it's you may as well do what you want because none of us are coming out of this alive.
I agree.
It's true.
I agree.
It's true. It's true. But as usual, it's always fun. And Two Guys Against AI, make sure you subscribe.
And hit the like button so other people see us.
Thanks for
and
joining
we
us.
appreciate you. Thank you.